in Nature's Lab in celebration of the World Migratory Bird Day, which falls on 8th May every year. I am Vihanga, the Secretary of Bees. If I am to introduce who we are, Bees, Meso Enthusiasts in Environment Science and Zoology, is the official organization affiliated to the Department of Zoology and Environment Sciences of Faculty of Science, University of Colombo. Today, we have organized this interactive session on bird migration and satellite tracking, which are hot topic these days, and hope our audience is curious to know more about these topics. So, first of all, let me welcome our Senior Treasurer, Professor Inoka Pereira, and all our academic staff members. And next, on behalf of the Executive Committee of BEES, I warmly welcome our panelists today, Dr. Sampath Seneviratne and Ms. Gayomini Panagoda from Department of Zoology and Environment Sciences of University of Colombo with utmost pleasure. Also, I would like to welcome our audience today and hope you would actively involve in the discussion. So before moving into the session, let me introduce our panelists. As we are talking on migratory birds and satellite tracking, we have got the experts in Sri Lanka to talk on it. We have Dr. Sampath Seneviratne with us. Dr. Seneviratne graduated from the University of Colombo in 2002 with a major in zoology, and he was a graduate student of the Memorial University of Newfoundland from 2004 to 2008. Dr. Seneviratne has worked as a postdoctoral fellow in the University of British Columbia, Vancouver, from 2009 to 2012. Since 2013 up to now, he has been working as a senior lecturer in the Department of Zoology and Environment Sciences of University of Colombo. His research interests are rooted in the studies of island biogeography, causes of endemicity, and the evolution of novel traits. Sir, we warmly welcome you to the session that we are extremely privileged to have you with us. Next, we have Ms. Gayomini Panagoda with us. Ms. Gayomini has a bachelor's degree in environmental conservation and management from the University of Kelaniya, Sri Lanka. She has always adored birds. So after finishing her bachelor's, she joined the Field Ornithology Group of Sri Lanka based in University of Colombo and soon started to work on her PhD on bird migration ecology under the Department of Zoology and Environment Sciences of University of Colombo. She works with Dr. Sampath Seneviratne, who is a primary PhD supervisor, Professor Sarath Kotagama, Dr. Taj Mundkur from Wetlands International, and Dr. S. Balachandran of Bombay Natural History Society, India. She's mostly based in Mannar, where she regularly engages in her field expeditions, bird ringing, and satellite tagging activities. Ms. Gayomini, we warmly welcome you to the session, and we are really happy to have you with us. And also, as this is an interactive discussion, I would like to invite the audience to put up any questions you have in the chat box so we can direct them to the panel. And please keep your microphones and videos switched off to avoid any kind of disturbances. So without further ado, we will move into the session. So we'll first discuss on the basics of migration and migrants. So to provide a basis to this discussion, I would like to direct my first question to Dr. Seneviratne. So can you provide us a brief introduction on what is migration and how we differentiate between dispersion and migration?
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Actually, good evening. And it's quite, a bit rainy here, but I think the connection will hold. And thank you very much, Bees, for inviting and accepting my suggestion of doing this as a discussion because I thought I'm a bit kind of getting a bit saturated with talks on migration and discussing the basics of it. So instead talking about what is migration and the basic dimensions of it, it's I think it's a nice idea and a timely way to discuss the actually what's been happening around us in Sri Lanka, because I think studies of bird migration has been lagging in Sri Lanka for the past almost 100 years, partly because of basically this has not been much studies done over the past century if I may say, except the banding program initiated by Professor Kotagama for Gesell, and also eBird. What is happening with eBird? I think those two are, eBird is quite young in Sri Lanka still, but there's a fair bit of interest with the young birders. And besides the banding program, for the past 100 years, we haven't done much, and we don't know much, even though Sri Lanka is a centrally located in the global map and one of the critical areas in the global avifauna when it comes to migration. So what I'll do, Vihanga, we have about 30 slides ready, and Gayomini and I will kind of use these slides as we go. So I will start a small introductory about 6 slides, and then we can cater some questions, and then and then Gayomini will have some slides again by myself. And so we'll use those slides in a way so that it won't be kind of not monotonous for the entire hour. So I will start with several slides to encompasses the basics of migration. I will share those slides first, and then we'll move back to the discussion after few minutes, okay, from now. So let me share this. Okay, so again, good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining. What we are going to tell you is that basically this video speaker view. Where is speaker view? Okay, yeah. So basically, to talk about the new findings, some of the new findings of migration using satellite tags and GSM and GPS tags, flagging and so on. It's more like a small update. We've been working fairly intensely about past 3 to 4 years, talking to the global scientific community. I've been personally, traveling. We were in India, in Canada, and in several fora in Australia and in the Eastern Asian flyway. Try to kind of try to develop a collaborative network to study the highest level of migratory studies, which is the use of high-tech small devices that there are a few groups across the globe have been using, because Sri Lanka is quite neat when it comes to its location, because we are in the central, in the middle of bottom of the Central Asian flyway, one of the key flyways. So and over the past year, we've been very successful in actually mounting satellite tags and studying the migratory patterns. Now, since the migration is happening right now as we talk, we are getting lots of information, almost overwhelming amount of information from some of these. So I must tell in the beginning, there's several parties involved: University of Colombo, Department of Zoology and Environment Sciences, and the Field Ornithology Group of Sri Lanka. We are University of Colombo, and my lab, Avian Evolution Node in the Department of Zoology. My graduate student, Gayomini Panagoda, that's her major part of her PhD. And then we have our main collaborators, Chinese Academy of Sciences and Wetlands International, coming from the international partners, the local partners, Palmyra House, Wayo Resort, Wildlife Department as the main, government agency. So these are like, it's a multi-facet international and local collaboration, and these are some of those highlights. To begin with, I'll try to show you why Sri Lanka, why us, and why Sri Lanka is lagging behind for almost a century, partly because of, like many other aspects in science that we see, like, for example, in COVID, like, we have the capacity, we have the resources, but either we don't know much about science happening around the world, or few individuals might have misled the country in a very bad way for about a few decades, or that as a culture, Sri Lanka is not that our approach is not that data driven. It's mostly a few individuals kind of dominating the landscape kind of a approach. So yeah, so we've been, I think, lagging for a long time, except the banding program that is happening in over the past 2 decades using metal tags. So let's see why Sri Lanka is important. Uh, Sri Lanka is here, as we all know. We are one of the we are part of one of the 8 major global flyways. The Eastern Asian Flyway, one of the longest and largest, and then the Central Asian Flyway, which encompasses Europe in the west and the far eastern Russia, and even maybe into Alaska in American northwest, and then the Eastern African Asian flyways, and then the European and Western African flyways, uh, and then the Eastern Atlantic Flyway in the Americas, Central Mississippi Flyway, and finally the Pacific Flyway, another very large flyway where lots of birds moving. And of these, the Central Asian Flyway is unique because it's mostly land bound, and it doesn't go to the southern hemisphere. However, Central Asian Flyways brings birds from almost 1/3 of the northern hemisphere, land area of the northern hemisphere. So it's a very large area covering in the northern hemisphere all the way to the Arctic, and ends in Sri Lanka. So that's something unique because it ends in Sri Lanka. So about 1/3 of the land areas of this planet, migratory birds actually come and trickle into the South India and into South India and Sri Lanka. So we are getting very large number of birds in a fairly vast extent of land, like terrestrial land in the planet. So it's unfortunate that Sri Lanka has not have a very strong, powerful scientifically oriented, science-based study led by scientists and birders, because globally the bird migration and bird banding and related research is kind of led by birders, supported by ornithologists and scientists. But in Sri Lanka, unfortunately, our limited birding kind of community seems like not being involved in migratory related studies using standard techniques like banding and tagging. So, so in this context, see there's a whole range of birds, from European birds from the west, Arctic birds from the north, Far Eastern Asian, and uh, Northwestern American birds from the east, comes through China, Himalayas, Mongolia, and then Russia, and then into South, so Indian subcontinent, and to Sri Lanka in this Central Asian flyway. And in the Sri Lankan context, we have about 500 species of birds. And from that, about half are migrants. And of that, about another half, or slightly above half, about 2/3, are regular migrants. The rest are vagrants. Vagrants are in the 6th National Report of Biodiversity. We define vagrants as ones that has not been seen more than 3 times in a decade, or not been seen more than I think 5 times in the entire history of the science that we do, the ornithology that we do. So So in that light, about half of these 250 birds are regular visitors to Sri Lanka. When they come in flocks or individually. They come in October, and then they spend 6 months and leave in end of March to mid-April. So they spend about 6 months, but they don't breed here. They breed in their wherever they come from. The problem in Sri Lankan bird studies is that there are stories. There's two prominent stories and one side story. The two prominent stories are that we have two migratory routes, western route and eastern route. And then some even say that we have a third route called Andaman route. So how we know all these routes? We have no idea. It's just stories. Probably stories came from 17th and 18th century naturalists on horseback. Maybe people have noticed that a large number of birds coming, and we know that from Colombo to kind of Chilau area during the migration, lots of birds you see, like road kills, cats kill them, buildings kill them. So we know that influx of birds coming. But where they come from and how they come, we have no clue, because birds don't tell us where they come from. And then similarly, the northern wetlands get filled in October. And so the assumptions are that the birds coming from along India in the west coast and in the east coast and enter into Sri Lanka. I could remember some people asked me like whether do they come from Manna, or do they come from Adams Ridge, or don't they come from Jaffna and like that. But the answer is that they don't tell us. When you go there, you might see lots of birds, but how they come, when they come, we know when they come, but how they come and where they come from, it's a more of a mystery. But the unfortunate reality is these anecdotal observations been so established, these stories like these mythical, like fairy tale stories been so established, people think that we know. The reality is we don't know. When this got exposed, in my opinion, when the wind farms were proposed in Manna, there wasn't any data to show that where they come from, how they use this landscape. So people were basically, like shooting in the dark all over the place, and some thought they come this way, some think they come along the line. And those who claim that they know everything about migration also didn't do anything, because we don't know anything. Right. I'll leave that and get back to the discussion. Yes, so that's the introduction. It's not, there's lots of gaps. Uh, we we had a lot of issues in terms of our knowledge and conservation, management, infrastructure planning, what to put where and where not, which areas has to be kept for them. All this needs information, and we haven't had that information. Yes, Yanga. Okay, I think that answers the kind of the what migration kind of a story.
Yes, sure, sir. So, yes, with that description, we will move ahead with the migratory routes that you described. So, in your opinion, how would the migrants navigate? Like example for using sight, Earth's magnetic lines, or DNA imprinting, or memory, or is there any other method for this?
Yeah, I will quickly answer and move forward just so that to incorporate more questions. So yes, basically birds have magnetism. They can sense the Earth's magnetism. Basically, they can sense north and south. And also birds have Polaroid vision for the Polaroid light. So even at night, they know where the sun is. So from sun, it can recognize east and west. So anywhere in the day or night, a bird, especially a migratory bird, would be able to know north and south from magnetism and east and west from the Polaroid light. So it knows northeast, southwest. So that is basic compass. And then at night, studies have shown that the birds can recognize star constellations like Orion, the Libra, and whatever we call it. So So they can navigate using stars, and also during daytime they can navigate using large rivers, coastlines, like the geological formations that where they can see. So combination of all these and certain amount of memory, genetic memory and all, they can navigate in a set path. Vihanga?
Yes. So then, if we pay attention to the international and national level agreements, what are these kind of agreements and policies or laws established on migration?
Yeah, I mean, we are a signatory to the Ramsar Convention, which we are bound to safeguard migratory habitats of the migratory species. That's the habitat side of it, especially the wetland habitats. We are a signatory of the Convention of Migratory Species, CMS. So migratory species belongs to three types of countries: the country that these birds breed, the country that these birds overwinter, and the countries that it use on its migration, northern migration and southern migration. So we are part of we are signatory to CMS as well, and the wildlife department is the government's representative who in charge of that. And then so those are the international conventions, and then the nationally we have the Fauna and Flora Protection Ordinance, which will protect them, all life, like all birds, in this case migratory birds. So you can't kill, you can't capture them, you can't keep them in captivity without a special permit approved by the Department of Wildlife Conservation. And beyond that, you have the wildlife parks that has the laws, and then the forest ordinance, which protects the forest and its diverse wildlife. So that's so it's a series. There's a series of and then the Coast Conservation Act and so on. So all these protects the members. There was a nice article in Facebook published about a week ago by Dr. Jagat Gunawardena on what are the legal protection available for birds. I think that's a very nice summary of that as well. Anyway, so there's a whole series of protection, from international commitment to the local commitment. And on top of that, culturally, Sri Lankans, we don't kill and eat or just simply kill birds for pleasure in most parts, compared to some other places where people use migratory birds as spot targets. So they just shoot at large flocks of migratory birds for pleasure. It's a traditional way of having some fun in the spring and fall. So unfortunately, we don't do that. And then we don't put nets and collect them and eat, like halmas or small fish that we eat. So we don't do that either. So the traditional norms also protect these birds. Yes, over to you, Yanga.
Yes. So with that, we will just know that what time of the year do they arrive in Sri Lanka? Is there a specific time period for them to come?
Yeah, as I mentioned, from September to October in the fall, that they come, and then they leave in mid-March to mid-April.
So with this current environmental issues we're experiencing, like global warming and climate change, so can we expect any kind of changes in the arrival of migrants due to these global issues?
Of course, yes. There's lots, and I think it itself a discussion that I could, in the future we can have in bees. Probably there are lots of changes. Especially the global climate change is very kind of directly affecting them, because the birds that are in Sri Lanka, in Colombo, they will be overwintering so they will be breeding in say Finland. So a bird in Colombo tonight would breed in Finland, in Scandinavia, right? So this bird has to start flying, because it will take about 3 weeks for it to get there, or 2 weeks max if it flies directly. 2 to 3 weeks. So it has to go, it has to be in Finland um, right in time where the larvae of the butterflies and moths hatch so that it can feed. Because if it goes early, it will still have winter and it will die. If it goes late, then all the insect larvae will hatch, emerge, and then they fly off. So it would starve, and it might not have enough time to breed, find a mate, build a nest, and then lay eggs and brood those, and then get and feed the chicks for another nearly a month, and train the young to fly back. So it needs about 3 to 4 months for that. So if it is too late, it might not have that time. So how this bird in Colombo knows when to start its northern migration? So those either genetically they are programmed or they do global cues. The problem is that with the global climate change, these cues are getting muddier and muddy. Yeah. So they have to, they don't have they are losing its sophisticated climatic cues increasingly because of the changes in the weather pattern. It's like the same problem that the farmers face, because ready you have to be ready for the incoming rains, and then when you start plowing the fields with the rain, you hope that after 3 months or a certain set times the rain will go off, so you will have a dry period for the harvest to kind of mature, or the crop to mature. But if you don't have a set cycles, then when you start, there's no way out. You have to continue hoping that the dry season will come. So the same problem, so in Sri Lanka, the farmers face the problem is that rains all over the year, and then crops get destroyed, or you don't get enough rain in the beginning, so you can't have enough water. You don't have enough water in the tender when the plants are tender. So the similar problems there are for them. That's a kind of a one example. There are many other examples. So as a result, with the change of climate, the birds respond accordingly. Some bird species can respond. So the species that respond accordingly, we see shifts in numbers, shifts in dates, arrival dates, shift in departure dates, and also we see large flocks coming back in May. Sometimes they should not do that. They should go to north, but they come back. And some migratory species decided not to migrate, and all kinds of complications are there.
Yes.
Bianca?
Yes. So with that, we will move into one more question in this part of discussion. So why the migration of flamingos have not taken place to Sri Lanka in these years to 2020 and 2021?
2021, a small flock came. 2020, we haven't seen much, that much action. Partly, we had almost kind of a resident population in Pork Bay, about 2,000 flamingos, and then we have sometimes large numbers of almost 10,000, 8,000 individuals coming from the Gujarat. But what happened besides those, our resident population unfortunately died in India in 2000 and in September 2019. Very unfortunate. There was a very bad storm, and they tried to escape from the storm in Point Calumet, and they got basically the entire flock. That's what the Indian scientists thought, that they were our birds in Pork Bay, and so about 2,000 birds died. The entire flock, they couldn't withstand this storm, so the entire flock kind of eventually succumbed into the force of nature. But so the broad suspicion was it's our flock, and it proved true the next year, because the flamingos, 1,400, 1,800 or 2,000 birds that we normally see in the winter in Mana hasn't shown up. So we know that that's a flock that actually died that caught into that storm and died. So that's kind of it can happen. Like bad weather can affect the people, so as animals. And species like flamingos, they are very tender, long-legged. They don't have any mechanism to kind of avoid a very bad storm. So that's a kind of odd event, but they'll come. The youngsters from Gujarat will come. and they'll eventually form the flock back.
Yes, thank you, sir. So with that, we will move into the second part of our discussion. So kind of the main topic of our discussion today, that is the satellite tracking. So I would like to direct this question to Ms. Gayomini. So Ms., what are the methods available for studying bird migration? What are the most effective ones?
Yes, Bianca. So can you please share the screen?
Sure. Okay, Gayomini, I will share the screen. You'll let me know when to move. Okay.
Sure. Yes. Right. Okay. Now, Bianca, yes, there are many methods available to study bird migration. Okay.
Give me a second, Gayomini. I have to get the sharing screen.
So I'll start with most simplest and most widely used method, that is here, systematic observation. Now, systematic observations can be done directly, and these observations can be done in breeding and wintering grounds, and also along the critical sites of a particular flyway, especially in the migratory bottlenecks, where the thousands of migratory birds pass by, and then in the stopover sites where they stop to refuel. Now, this the systematic observation gives us a good and a basic understanding to the migration, first of all, before coming to the advanced technology. Then, as a development to this direct observation, then in 1950s, the scientists started to use weather surveillance radar to study about migration. So this radar helped us to taught us many things about yet unseen migration. Because the thing is, most of the bird migration go unnoticed if they fly too high to observe from the ground, and then in bad weather. So independent of this flight altitude and bad weather, radar helped us to track the bird migration, and so helped scientists a lot to understand more about the migration. Then, moving on, the bird ringing and other marking methods is also a very good method to study bird migration. We'll be discussing in detail about bird ringing in a while. And then moving on to the more advanced technologies, actually the cutting edge technologies of migration tracking is the use of satellite trackers and the radio transmitters and other long distance migratory tracking technologies. Right. That will be the topic of the day, and we will be talking about this in detail in a while. And then moving on to get a more broader understanding. So if for the species that are too small,
Gayomini, there's a small kind of echo.
I think. Yes, that is
probably the phone. You have some connection problems. Yeah, okay.
Right, I think the second there's a second device which is operating. So if she can reduce the volume of the second device.
I cannot reduce the volume.
Okay.
It doesn't allow me to.
No, you just mute it. Mute your phone, and let the computer capture your sound.
Is it okay now? No, I don't know.
Then do the reverse. Mute the computer and then let the phone to capture.
Talking about using isotopes and other markers and genetical studies, how it helps studying with migration. So So for the species that are too small to attach a transmitter, and for the species with not much ring recoveries are not available, we can go for this kind of technologies. What happens here is with isotopes and other markers, so within the bird tissues, so the ratios of these isotopes can be analyzed to see from which parts of the globe they are coming, because these ratios of the stable isotopes and the trace elements differ from region to region. So we can have, by analyzing these, we can have a broad understanding about this distribution patterns of these birds. So this doesn't have a pinpoint accuracy like the ringing and then like satellite tracking technologies, but still this helps us to understand about the migration patterns of the species that we don't have any other data. So the same goes with the genetical studies, the DNA markers, the genetic composition of different geographical populations are different from one another. So analyzing these patterns, we can have a broad understanding about from where these birds are coming from. So, so we can move on.
Sure.
Right. Now, what is bird ringing? So how bird ringing is can be done? So what happens is almost most of you might know, because many of you have attended to our talks earlier. So what happens here is in bird ringing, a metal band which is tough and durable, but in the same time lightweight, is attached to a leg of the bird. So these, as you can see here, these bands carry a unique number and an address. So using this unique number, you can track down to the individual. So each and every individual can be identified, and this address tells you from where the bird is coming. In Sri Lanka, the first ringing attempt happened in 1963, and the National Bird Rigging Program, which is a collaborative effort between the Field Ornithology Group of Sri Lanka and the Department of Wildlife Conservation, was launched on 2002, and since then quarterly rigging sessions is being conducted in southern and northern parts of Sri Lanka in Bundaland manner. So let us see next slide, please.
Yeah.
Let us see how this banding and subsequent recovery or the recapture helps to build us migration maps or migration atlases. What happens here is you can see the two ends of this, the straight lines drawn here in the map. That is the origin where the bird was banded initially and the subsequent recovery. So this gives a very wide understanding about the breeding distributions and the wintering locations. Even the stopover sites can be revealed. So likewise, many information it can give you. So next slide, please. Now, however, banding has some limitations. Now you can understand, to get a subsequent, a considerable amount of recaptures, so you will have to band birds in millions. Otherwise, because due to the low recovery rate, low recapture rate, so you get just some limited information only. So to enhancing that, to overcome that limitation, other types of marking techniques were evolved. So one example is leg flagging that we also adopted in Sri Lanka last year. So there are other marking methods, using color bands, then being tags, then neck collars, etc., etc. So what happens in leg flagging is so how it is beneficial. It enhances the rate of resightings of these banded individuals, because it can be, those flags can be read even from a distance. If you have good optics, you don't have to recapture the bird to read the color code or the number. Here, each and every country or each and every major region in a particular flyway given a specific color code. So wherever it flies in the flyway, wherever it is in the globe, any person who observes it will know from where the bird is coming from. at least which areas it passed through. So the international flagging color code that we use here in Sri Lanka is double green flags that goes on the right leg. So if you observe birds with double green flags, it belongs to us. Otherwise, if you see different flags, you can track down from using this list from where it is visiting us. Moving on. Yes, so these are some examples of our flag birds. You can see that even you can read this engraving, which is much larger, not like a conventional metal bag. Yes, right, sir. Right. Now, this ringing and flagging, so these kind of marking techniques have a major limitation. The thing is, you saw that there's a straight line drawn between 2 points, but there's a lot of empty space in between. So which are the migratory routes that takes exactly? At what kind of places it stops? What is about the timing of migration, the migratory behavior? All these goes unknown. So as an advancement and overcoming this limitation, the long distance migration tracking was introduced exactly like 50 years ago. In 1980, when a bald eagle was tagged for the first time. What you can see here the kind of migratory routes drawn from the satellite trackers, which are much more accurate. And let me tell you what kind of migration tracking technology is available nowadays. Now, here I have shown a classification of the different migratory tracking technologies. Here, the classification is done according to the data retrieval system. That means the way that we obtain, that we collect the data from the trackers. Now, the first one I have shown here, satellite-based systems. So these are the satellite trackers that we all know. What happens here is, the tracker, in this picture you can see this eagle is mounted with a tracker. So it transmits the signal, it can locate itself wherever it is in the globe. It can locate itself using two methods. One is using as the satellite is approaching the bird, using the Doppler shift, it can locate where the tracker is in the globe. So then what happens is it locates itself, and this data point is transmitted to the satellite above, and then from the satellite, a ground station picks up the signal, and ground station through the data provider, it is sent to the researcher, which sits in the laboratory. So this happens actually almost real time, and it doesn't matter wherever it flies in the globe, you can pick it up. And then another satellite satellite tracker uses GPS technology. So it uses GPS positioning rather than Doppler effect. So using the GPS satellite systems, we can go for much more good quality data with high resolution, because GPS positioning can be accurate as 5 meters. Right. Now, there's a limitation associated with these satellite trackers. The thing is, now you can see that the tracker has to transmit the signal for more than 2,000 kilometers. The satellite is far, far away. So, with that, what happens is that the battery has to be very powerful, and a big battery means the transmitter is heavy. So this cannot be done with small birds. So this can be used for big birds like raptors and then ducks and geese, etc. So as an overcoming this limitation, we are coming to the ground-based receivers. In ground receivers, what happens is, now the data is retrieved by fixed or mobile antennas, which is based on the ground. Now the tracker doesn't have to transmit signals all the way to the space, but to the receiving station, which is located a few kilometers away. Now this is the basis of the radio telemetry that we all know. What happens in radio telemetry is the short range VHF transmitters emit pulses of energy, and then the antenna which is mounted on a vehicle or which is with the researcher, picks it up, and the researcher has to follow the bird with the antenna, and then only he can track the bird. But this technology does not help us to understand the long distance migration, because we cannot follow the bird throughout the flyway across countries and across seas and across continents. So this is not going to help us with long distance migration tracking. So that is where the cellular networks comes to help us, or the GSM technology, the global system for mobile communication. So what happens with GSM is, so the tracker using the satellites, using GPS positioning, it can collect the location data, and then this data is stored, and then as the bird flies throughout the countries, whenever it comes within the mobile coverage, within the mobile network, the closest tower will pick up the signal, and then it gives to the data provider, and data provider direct it to us. So this is an advancement. And again, it should be mentioned that these trackers are lightweight, because it doesn't have to have a big battery. So it is an advancement. Then moving on to the third type of tracking devices available, we call it data loggers, or in other words, archival tags. These trackers are even lightweight, so it can be small as 0.5 grams, because it doesn't have a big battery. It doesn't do the transmission. We have to retrieve the tracker back in order to collect the stored data within the logger. So these data loggers uses two tracking technologies: the GPS positioning, which is highly accurate and provide high resolution data, and then the solar geolocation. So let me tell you what solar geolocation is. Sir, next slide, please. Yes, in solar geolocation, what happens? It's not a fancy tracker. It's a very basic technology it uses. It has a light sensor and a real-time clock, so which can determine the time of the sunset and sunrise. So using all this data is stored within. Once we retrieve the tracker using appropriate software, we can calculate the day length. We can calculate the latitude and longitude using the day length, and then the time of solar node, like as shown in the graph. But the drawback with these solar geolocators is these are not that high resolution. It gives coarse scale data, but then again, as this is very lightweight, we can use for even very small birds, and the birds as small as hummingbirds. Right. Now, the graph in the left side shows you the previous slide, different types of trackers. So the previous slide, please.
Okay.
The
Right.
different types of trackers that we can use with the different birds with different body sizes. So according,
shall I? Yeah, we'll move, Gayomini. Yes, otherwise we might not have time.
Yes. Okay.
To answer questions. Yeah.
Okay. Right. Now, what are the tracker types that we are using? Now you know what kind of trackers available, and we use GPS and GSM trackers. So our devices have a built-in GPS module which can position itself, and different sensors which can collect environmental data and behavioral data. So environmental data like light intensity, temperature, air pressure, etc., and then their behavior, and then this wireless communication module, of course. So these trackers are solar powered, and we get the transmission once a day. And okay, moving on to the different capabilities of these trackers. Right. So this shows how two birds move along the terrain, and you can see how it adjusts its flight altitude according to the topography. And these are two different birds who travel through this landscape at two different times. And amazingly, they follow you can see they follow the same route. Now, everything can be is collected within this tracker. And so the next figure. Right. And this is also some data, some behavioral and environmental data collected by our trackers. You can see this value here called ODTA gives you an activity index. So higher the value, more active the bird is. So you can see at different times of the day it was more active. So and at other times it was not so. So using this value, we can actually figure out what actually the bird is doing. Is it foraging, resting, or is it flying, etc. Again, you can see in the graph in the bottom how the temperature varies and the light intensity varies. So we can we can understand many things, not just its location, but a lot about their migratory behavior as well. Yes. Yes. Sir.
Okay, shall I? I will stop there. All right.
Yes, I think it's a very comprehensive description about the trackers and all this bird rigging equipment. So I think with that, we will move into the next question. So it is for Ms. Gayomini as well. So what kinds of animals other than birds can be tracked using satellite tracking?
Yes, Vihanga. Actually, any animal which is big enough to carry a tracker can be tracked. There is no limitation. So there are many examples for the birds that have been tracked in the world. Mammals from elephants to the ungulates, the buffaloes, wildebeest, and then the marine mammals like whales, dolphins, etc. Then the reptiles like sea turtles. Then the fish like great white shark. And so recently I read that there are transmitters which is small enough to be mounted, like 0.3 gram, weight around 0.3 gram that can be mounted on honeybees. So the transmitters, the trackers are evolving. So we will be able to understand many things in the future.
Yes. Yes, thank you, Ms. Gayomini. So when talking about these trackers, it was mentioned like they are a bit heavy and you have to mount it on the animal. So somebody may have a question, like a bit a controversial question, that do these trackers affect on have a negative effect on these animals? So I would like to ask, sir, so do these trackers and rings affect the survival or the behavior of the migrants?
I see. Yeah, thanks for asking. By the way, for the viewers, what happened? I think Vihanga and the bees, the bees community had requested questions. I think over the past few days, and we were sent a Google sheet with questions. So what we've done, we've compiled those set of questions into a set of clusters, and then that's how we prepare the slides. So some questions we know that Vihanga going to ask from us, and then at the end, Vihanga will filter those from the question bank and get questions that has not been addressed from the chat, right?
Yes.
Anyway, so yeah, your question it's probably the most valid question, and also very important question. As I mentioned, Sri Lankan scientific study of migration in Sri Lanka has been severely crippled by misinformation and rumors spread by people who probably don't like to see science happening in the bird world, or who might be afraid of that the science of birding would affect their livelihoods, daily livelihoods, some few people. So it is very important that those like proper scientific knowledge and literacy and understanding is there for in all sectors of the community. So these tags are has a weight, yes, but those are in milligrams. So the largest satellite tag we use, the heaviest one that we use, is 23 grams, and then the lightest satellite tags we use go down to 2.5 to 2.3 grams. And the standard is that the weight of the tag should not increase increase 3% of the weight of the bird. 3% of the weight of the bird, especially for flying animals like bats and birds. And if you ever put it onto a flying lizard or something, so flying animals, the international standard is it should not exceed 3% of the weight of the bird and animal bird. It would be different for an elephant percentage, because like the flying is the most energetically and weight bound, like a really limited activity. So because of that, it is as low as that. So 3% is almost the weight of our clothes, you know, so it's not heavy. So 23 gram tag can go to a bird heavier than 800 grams or more, something like that. And the 2.3 gram tag can go to a bird as light as probably 120 grams or something. I have to do the calculation anyway. So something like that. So it's not heavy at all. It is a protruding structure, but there are, you know, certain ways to limit that drag as well. I will show you a video. I think that has been, I've showed this for a few, like in different presentations as well, to show that these birds, even in Sri Lanka, the tagged birds that we tagged, they nest, they breed, they move with the rest of the flock. So we know that their behavior had not been altered. If it is altered, they won't fly with the rest of the unbanded birds, untagged birds. And also our birds are now doing fine, some are in Arctic. So they've done that extraordinary journey with our tags. So that is also a confirmation that these tags won't affect them. And also global studies had shown that with evidence, I'm going to show one, that they are they are not affecting. Like any other operation, you have to have certain technical capacity, you have to have certain technical knowledge, certain skilled people involved. But when you do it right in the standard methods, it is harmless. It does not cause any behavioral or psychological or physical alterations. I'll show you a small presentation to show that. Okay, so I will optimize the screen, and Vihanga, let me know if you can't hear the voice here. Okay. So, oops. So this is the, you can hear this okay, Renee? So this is a migration of European honey buzzard. The blue is the female, male, and the pink is the female. This is in Europe. Now it's flying toward Spain and Gibraltar. And now the both birds are flying, but the male now stopped in the western Africa. But the female is flying toward the south along the Peninsula into southern Africa. And in fall now it's flying back. Then we are following the female here, and it's flying through Sahara. And you can see the light. The elevation is also scattered. These are real, setting the height of this female over the honey. And it's flying at the mate is already north. They are entering Gibraltar, and you can see the male's path is the blue, and now they are back in in spring, and now it's male also joined. So these are simple behaviors. This is like 6 months of its migration in a nutshell. So as you can see, Vihanga, I will I'll get I can't see it anyway. So that's an example where two birds, a male and a female, was tagged in the Western Europe, and the male and female both started to fly together towards Spain, and they crossed the Mediterranean Sea from Gibraltar Sound and Spain, and then the male went into the West Africa and did its winter there, and the female went to Namibia, and then they both flew back north, and the female took a much arduous Saharan route, and it crossed Sahara, and then they both again crossed through Gibraltar, which is the narrowest path that you could cross the Mediterranean if you were to do that, and then went into the Iberian Peninsula, into the Europe, and into its breeding range. And the male came first, and probably it's guarding its nest, and then the female joined. So this is done in two satellite tagged birds. So they behave just like any other untagged bird as well. So which is what we've seen here as well. So there are different tracking devices, as Gayomini said, that the ones that we use, GPS, GSM trackers, they have a satellite tag. This one is about 6 grams heavy, and can go to great knots, common red shanks and all. And this is a slightly heavier tag for slightly bigger birds. This is about 9 grams. And again, you have the solar panel, an antenna. In this case, just a single antenna. Earlier case, it has 2 antennas. And then and it can go to godwits, oyster catchers, crab plover, gray plover, like bigger birds. And the weight of the birds is a kind of interesting thing. Some birds, their size is deceiving. They look smaller, but they are heavy. Some birds look very big, but they are very lightweight. So we get to know that when we band them in our banding stations. So surprisingly, some birds are heavier than they look, and some birds are much lighter than they look in the field. So the size of the bird can be enhanced by the long plumes of feathers, or the short tails, short wings actually kind of make them smaller than, like less heavier than what it looked like in certain cases. So anyway, so you have to wait and see. We individually weigh these birds before deciding which tag to go, or whether we can tag them or not. So the heaviest one, that, as I mentioned earlier, are the Druid Lego tags, which doesn't have an antenna because it's big enough. It can hide the antenna inside the device, and it has a fairly large kind of jutting out solar panel so that the feathers won't disturb it, and then it goes into the back of this. And the Eurasian curlew, ducks, storks, eagles can carry these tags. So these are some of the examples of tags that we used. The lightweight tags of these birds, and then the slightly heavier tags of these, and then we put deliberately go the big tags. We caught a spoonbill stork, and we have one spoonbill stork, which is a resident species, also carrying this tag in Bundala, and we are monitoring its movement, so we can understand its connectivity, whether these birds fly to Davalava, to Lunugambihira, or to Yala, or to Galloya, or would it stay in the Bundal area, and like that. And we've had shovelers, pigeons, the brown-headed gull, a very special bird, Caspian tern, the largest tern in the world. We have attacked there. And then the more charismatic black-tailed godwits and bar-tailed godwits. The thing is that, and then the Wimbrel, the interesting thing is, for most of these species, this is the first time that these tags been put in Central Asian flyway, not just in Sri Lanka, but in India or any part of Central Asian flyway. This is the first time that these tags go. So for the entire Central Asian flyway, this is a brand new operation. So the Central Asian flyway has 30 countries. As I mentioned, it covers almost 1/3 of the areas, the northern hemisphere. So that's a very large area, and we are doing it first time. So it's a very big global enterprise, and we are very proud of being the center of that. Sri Lanka is truly a center, so we'll show that. With that, I think I'll stop. I think next slide is Gayomini's. Yeah. So yeah, over to you, Vehanga.
Yes, sure. Sir, I would like to ask one more question, that with all these tracking techniques, that what are the obstacles you face during satellite tracking?
There are many. As I mentioned, there are, like, as a culture, Sri Lanka is not so science oriented when it comes to decision making as well as public opinion, and people would, we have to struggle to convince, you can do 10 years of banding, or you can do some study for years, and still somebody who can check that, read something in Google, and then you have to sit with those same people as experts in a committee, and and then you have the same voting right. So that's been sometimes psychologically kind of disturbing. It's like what is happening sometimes in Corona also. Anybody can come up with something, and then then those who really commit in the middle of the scene also has the same voting right as anybody else. So that's I think being in a third world country, I think we can't expect more than that. But there are other problems, like, there's a series of agencies that we have to get permission. Telecommunication Regulation Authority, Ministry of Defense has to give a clearance. For import this sort of a sophisticated device, you need to have central bank and treasury's approval, and you have to get special permits from the Department of Wildlife Conservation. They're the authority, and so they review that, and then we have to work with the local communities, local agencies. The university has regulations, so there's lots of regulations, which is not a bad thing, but you have to do it. It takes time. We got a set of tags about 2 months ago, and this afternoon we managed to finally clear it. So it takes that much. It's so many letters and all. So it's a complicated process, which is understandable. It's a very complicated technology, very sophisticated technology, and a lot of international partnerships has to be there as well, as I mentioned earlier. On top of that, catching it safely without disturbing habitats, without disturbing behavior, without causing any bodily injuries, and releasing the bird in time without causing trouble. These are all it's very complicated, very important steps that all these are in a way barriers, in a way challenges, but it has to be done. But it's like a complicated surgery, from establishing the collaboration to getting the data while the bird is flying. So yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when talking about this migratory bird routes, that how much data would be needed to build up a clear picture of the migratory routes?
It depends on the route. Like if it is a linear migratory route, like the Pacific route or Eastern Atlantic route, or even I would say Eastern Asian flyways, I think it's slightly less complicated. But Central Asian flyway is the hardest in my opinion, because it has this V-type shape where it has two arms. One goes from Sri Lanka to Europe, another one goes from Sri Lanka to Far Eastern Russia. So different combination of birds use that, and very different barriers are there. And so to characterize Central Asian flyway and the flyways that comes to Sri Lanka, you need, I think, I would say 20-30 species. So we are aiming 70 tags and probably about 20-25 species to chart that. Yes. Over to you.
Yes. Thank you very much. So with that, we will move into Ms. Gayomini. So when talking about all these migrants and satellite tracking, so what are the exciting findings so far?
So I will share this again, Gayomini. You can start.
Yes, Vihanga. Yes. About the exciting finds, every discovery was exciting because everything is new and every day was exciting, because these are the things that we never knew, So yeah. So next slide, please. Yeah. Starting with this common red shank. So this is the first bird that we tagged, and also this is the first one to cross the international borders. After a month, it was tagged in Thalaimana. It visited India, visited Chennai as shown in the map. So yeah, then here also you can see I have shown here how it utilizes the local landscape. Actually, the site where it was tagged, this is the Udumale mud flat, which is located in Thalaimana. So within one particular day, how the bird moved, which kind of specific places that it foraged and where it was roosting, etc., etc. About a lot of things about its behavior could be understood, and how it responded to different ecological conditions, and how it responded to different local disturbances. Likewise, many things we could study. And moving on, the screen cannot be fully viewed. For some reason,
Can you see it now?
Some parts cannot be seen. I don't know. Vihanga, can you
I'll
see?
stop and Risha. Give me a second. I'll
that
stop.
will be best. Yes.
Right. Okay. Right. Now, this is another interesting species that we tagged, the crab plover. Crab plover is it's kind of a very rare bird, and again, a lesser known bird in Sri Lanka. So its migration is poorly known even in the global scale. Now, we have tagged several crab plovers in Talaimana. So the first map, the map figure in the left side shows you how it utilizes the northwestern coastal belt and then the other side of the Fork Bay. So after being tagged in Talaimana, it was utilizing the Ramas Bridge Islands, then the whole Mana Island. It was frequenting between Talaimana and Mana. It was in Ilokalampidi, then the Wankale Sanctuary. Then it made frequent visits to the north, to the Iranative Island, the Kaktiv Island, and then the threatened wetland, the Bedikalativ area, likewise. So we could understand many things about its the local habitat usage and how it utilized the local landscape. This bird is still in Mana, so it has been a year after it was tagged now, but it is still in Mana. Another interesting thing is that the crab plovers, we haven't found any breeding records of these species within Sri Lanka. So we are on alert whether it is going to breed here. If so, it will be a very interesting discovery. So we just have to wait. And another crab plover made an exciting journey from all the way from the northwestern part of Sri Lanka, from Mana. It crossed the country and it came to the eastern coastline, to exactly Batticaloa. And then it slowly went south and finally visited the Kalamatia Sanctuary of the south. Now, again, revealing many, many unknown things, because these birds were not previously known to visit these parts of Sri Lanka. At least when we take the last few decades, there are no records of these birds, of crab plovers occurring in these areas. So we could discover new localities, new habitats for the birds, for these crab plovers. Yes,
shall I?
Next. Right, and we have tagged some Eurasian regions. So this showing a journey of a male Eurasian region, starting from Mana. It went north in mid-March. It departed Mana. It went to Jaffna, stayed there for a while in Chava Kacheri Kites area, and then directly flew north through the southern India and then past central India, and somewhere it's somewhere in northern India at the moment. So within few weeks it will cross Himalayas and then arrive in their Siberian breeding grounds. We have to wait for it to make the journey, rest of the journey. And then this female, this figure here shows how it utilizes the northern wetlands of Sri Lanka during its northward journey. It was tagged in Wankale here. And again, you can see different locations that it utilizes different locations in Mana. And we could exactly identify the foraging locations, the foraging habitats that it used within the Wankale Sanctuary. And then the unknown roosting sites of these ducks, some unknown sites they were using in Mana. And then it also visited the Vedikalativ area. And then it visited Iranatiu during its northward journey, because this location is important because most of the migrant birds that we tagged, they stopped in Iranatiu during their northward departure. For example, even the crab plover did it, and then the other regions did it as well. And then it went to Kites and then visited Chava Kacheri and was hanging out for a few weeks there, and then it also departed to India. And yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Gayomini. So we'll move into the next question. So you described about this exciting findings. So how can this migration data that you have collected be used in this potential conservation plans and development projects? So is there any kind of biological, like how can we use this data for conserving the biological diversity among these birds?
Yes, Vihanga. actually, we can derive many conservation implications using this data of derived by satellite tags. In the flyway scale, many unknown stopover sites can be discovered, which is due to the some might go unnoticed due to their small size, but some of these stopover sites can facilitate whole populations of threatened migratory birds. So those kind of new locations can be discovered, and then we can protect those likewise. And when it comes to the local scale, what we have discovered so far, how it is going to help conservation, I'll tell you. So if you can go through the last few slides again, I was talking about how it utilizes the local landscape, which places it used for foraging, and then which was the roosting sites, and how it responded to the different local disturbances, etc. So, as mentioned earlier, that when the wind farms were coming up in Manor, and there are a lot of development projects happening, like constructing shrimp farms, etc. So the thing was, we didn't have the enough knowledge, we didn't have enough data to fight with those. And now, as we have this scientifically collected the robust data, we have a good weapon to fight. And actually, we have the knowledge which is required to guide these developmental activities, which can run in a more sustainable way now. You see? Yeah.
Yes, yeah, thank you very much. So in this, the final question of this part about satellite tracking and the migratory routes, so I would like to direct to Dr. Seneviratne. So do the current research validate the traditional routes of migration?
Vihanga, we are still in the early stages, so we have to wait another probably another 2 seasons because what we see in international studies is that from international studies that the routes that they take in the fall southern migration is not the same route that they take for to go back into their breeding sites in the north in the spring. In most cases, some actually take almost a loop. The reason is that the global since it has to navigate through a very long distance across the globe, the wind patterns in the fall is not the same patterns in the spring. The cloud cover in the fall is not it's not the same in the spring. The flowing of rivers, the melting of ice, rebuilding of ice, they're all different in because after the winter, the world is much cooler, and after the summer, the world is much hotter. So the changes of the wind patterns in the early in the year and the later in the year changes the path that they take. For example, even if you go on like a bicycle trip to one location, say about 50 kilometers away, we might not take the same route on our way. We would change based on the wind direction and the sun, and the morning ride would be different from the afternoon ride, and so on. So same applies to them. But what we see now, I will show you some interesting, those who are staying, these are probably the most exciting few slides that I wanted to share with you all. Give me a second, I'll stop sharing and I'll change the settings because sometimes, okay, now it's better. Right. So this is like, I'll show you the route that among our findings, personally, the most there's 2 very interesting and exciting, striking findings. One is the movement of these Hughlin gulls. We satellite tagged few Hughlin gulls, and in the global map, this is where the birds that we tagged here in Sri Lanka, and there are different species. This is the Larus cacheninus, this is Larus barbarensis, Larus vega over here, and then the Mongolicus, and then Mongolicus, and then here Hughlini, and then the Argentatus in the other side, and then so on. There's just different populations of like one species split into many species, and so the taxonomy the breeding ranges of these birds are not well understood. And still in an evolving state. So theoretically, our birds, if it is Larus huglini, they should come from here, from Finland here to Taimyr Peninsula here. So there's a Lana River goes here. The west of Lana River is where our birds should breed, and east of Finland, in the neck of the Scandinavia, the horse's neck, it's east of that. So this is the area that these birds should go. And where they are heading now, they are over here. This is last week, about 2 weeks ago. So now our birds are somewhere there. So I will show you the path. So to answer your question, no, it does not follow the same route. None of our birds, to be very frank with you, followed the conventional carved in stone 3 routes. But I will tell this, and we have a very exciting new finding which we are still calibrating and all. So we are not, we thought not to. We'll keep that for another different session. But this is the other very interesting finding. So let's follow the journey of this Hughlin gull with the Debert Lego tracker. We banded in April. By the way, when you handle birds well, they are very calm. These birds are like, they are very tame. As you can see, these are nasty birds. There's a phrase called as mean as a gull. These supposed to be mean animals, but see, it's sitting calmly on my lap. And we had some scenarios where crab plovers, they just wait, you don't have to worry. They just allow you to handle, because almost, there is a kind of the body language. They understand what we are doing. We are not the predators and all. Initially, they are struggling, obviously, to escape, but after some time, they're very quiet and cooperative, and hope that in return they'll be the greatest ambassador of their species in the war against destruction of by man. So anyway, so let's see where they done. So we first tagged them in Mana, near our banding station in Talaimana. And this is India, this is Sri Lanka. So we tagged them there, and then this particular bird flew back and forth a few times along the Ramas Bridge. This is the misidentified Adams Bridge. We call it Ramas Bridge. And then at one point it flew, started to fly north. And unlike the land bird, since it's a seabird, it started to fly towards Point Calumet, passing across the Pork Bay. Most of our birds flew along the edges of of Sri Lanka in the eastern edge of Pork Bay. A few actually flew in the western edge of Pork Bay, like the red shanks. But this guy, since it's a seabird, just flew into India. And then it flew from India, and it flew a little bit north, and then flew across India and went into the west coast, and flew along the western border. I mean, bear in mind, and pardon me that for some because of these are unpublished data, and because of our agreements, we can't disclose all the details because of geopolitical reasons as well. So so I'm giving you a patchy picture. Unfortunately, even though we have, as Gayomini showed, we know the height, the activity patterns, the weather patterns, and then the exact route and dates and time, whether it flew at night or during daytime or in the afternoon or in the morning. But I'm giving you a kind of a patchy description. These are unpublished work, so we are waiting, and these are so I can't disclose everything, but I will disclose some of the information. So it flew across India at one point and along the western coast up to Gujarat, and from south of near Hyderabad, it crosses the Pakistani border. From Gujarat, it flew into Hyderabad, and in the process, it crosses the Pakistani border. And then it flew across Pakistan, and then it it went into Kandahar, Afghanistan. And in the process, it crossed the Pakistani-Afghan border and went through Afghanistan into the mountains. From Kandahar, it climbed the mountain, the dry, over 4,000 meter tall, that is about 13,000 feet tall mountains of Kandahar, and into Afghanistan, and then enter into Uzbekistan. So it crosses the Afghan-Uzbek border, and it went to Turkmenistan for a bit, and then crossed the Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan border, and then flew further north. And then it eventually, so that's where it is, and then it flew into Kazakhstan. And in Kazakhstan, we have BirdLife Kazakhstan there. So we informed BirdLife Kazakhstan. Similarly, we informed our birding friends. There's a good group of birders, strong birders in Gujarat, in Jamnagar. So we informed them. So they ran around in lockdown, try to find our birds. Similarly, we informed some of the birders in Sri Lanka when our crab plovers went to East Coast. So some of the birders went there and saw the bird, the tagged, satellite tagged bird. And similarly, in Kazakhstan, this is where here, we inform our the BirdLife Kazakhstan, our BirdLife partner in Kazakhstan, and so they've done some Russian media releases, and it went viral there. So it was nice. So there was a bit of a hype there, and eventually it passes Kazakhstan and enter into Russia. And now, as we talk, these birds are in northern Russia. This is a zoomed in view of where it is now. So as you can see, this 35, 66, 13 means the number of data points coming from that. That means a substantial amount of time this bird stays there. And the yellow means daytime and the blue means night. So it spent the night in nearby lakes in Osiris. And then, so you can see there's a road and there's a swampy area. These are the ice. Now ice is melting in April and creating these wetlands. So I'm pretty sure in the winter, about a month ago, these were all covered with ice, and about 2 months ago, all these lakes were frozen, and these guys who's living in these houses might be just snowmobiling or skiing or skidooing along these lakes. But now the ice has melted and there's water everywhere, as you can see, and as you can see the roads and the houses. And most of the time, one of our Hughlin gulls are spending time in this lake, Osiro Lake, in northern Russia. And the second, another bird that we tagged is also following, and now it's entering into the same area. And this bird is kind of now had moved further north, and we are tracking closely with that. So with that, so this is the route it took. Both birds took almost kind of the similar route, and now the bird is over here. The lake that I showed is somewhere there, where this red dot. With that, I will, I think that's, yeah, I will stop that. Actually, what I do, I'll inform our parties again here, Vihanga, so that I can move into the questions. So as I mentioned, our local parties are the Palmyra House, providing our logistics. Wildlife Department is one of the major parties in our banding program, and Fogesel is the leader here, and the Colombo University. We do some genetics work here in my lab in the Department of Zoology. Professor Kotagama, Dr. Ted Mudka, Dr. Balachandran, those three are together with me supervising Gayomini's PhD project. Jude is the one who discovered that species of plover that we are working on right now, and then Professor Yang, Professor Lai Kao is the head scientist from the Chinese Academy of Sciences University, and then we have Wetlands International through Dr. Tej helping. BirdLife International always been a partner. So as assortment of people, and we have a research station in Mana, our sandpiper house, we call it, and the lab, and then the students and field assistants. It's a collaborative effort. Right, over to you.
Yes. So with that, I will just move into the general questions, especially asked by from the Google form we have shared. So that what is the cost of being an ecologist or an ornithologist in Sri Lanka? Is it a better career option?
Uh, I mean, there's no cost. It's you know, it's a type of it's a form of living. You are sometimes, if you are a field ornithologist, you sometimes are in the razor's edge. You know what is right, what is wrong, and you are right in the middle sometimes. Sometimes you are in the line of fire. But that is the challenging part, and then the benefits is that it's a big vacation. To me, I spend almost a decade in the north, and this is the ninth year of my tropical vacation. And so it's not a bad thing. In terms of a career, yes, the university pays me well, gives me the company of really great people, good students, very collegial environment, very, very comfortable environment. As a student, you would agree. I know we don't have racism, sexism, no, kind of, we are kind of just, we appreciate people who as they are. I mean, we don't like bad people, we like good people, and there's no barriers to like or hate a person in the university. So so I enjoy there. So being an ecologist, yes, if you are away from the university, you can still be an ecologist and a biologist or ornithologist. There are research stations. If you listen to Dr. Rohan Pithiyagoda's talk yesterday, he amazingly kind of illustrate the need of science for this country, and also the gaps in science and scientific study in the country. So I think if those gaps were at least some of those gaps, if we can fill in the next decade, then life of ecologists would be even better. And but there's obviously challenges. We have to find grants, and as an university academic, we do research in our spare time. It's not our primary duty. Most people don't understand that. People think, you are in the university, what is your contribution to the national development? Yes, we have to contribute, but it's our spare time in our, like, it's not part of our, like, it is a part of our duty, but it's, on the other hand, it's our spare time that we do. So there are challenges there, and also the permits, and then the funding, all these regulations also. It's not easy, especially a country, developing country, that science is not in its limelight in most of the time. So it's just challenges, but it's a career option. You can travel across the globe. In a given normal year, I would travel twice a year to outside Sri Lanka, one normally trip to the west and one trip to the east. Last year and this year for the past 15 years is the only years that I haven't traveled abroad. So being an ecology or scientist is a good career option, I would say.
Yes, thank you very much, sir. So with that, we will move into the questions given by the audience, because we can see there's a very good discussion going on the chat. So I will focus on the questions that we have not discussed in this discussion. Yeah. So
what you can do with considering the time, can you summarize these questions? So, like, we don't have to answer every single question, but kind of shoot us the main questions, so that that will cover most of the questions.
Yeah, this question, like, which non-pelagic migratory birds breed in Sri Lanka rather than seek refuge?
Like, sorry, what is just the last bit of the question? I didn't hear.
Which non-pelagic migratory birds breed in Sri Lanka rather than seek refuge?
Last bit is what is the last word that you mentioned?
Rather than seek refuge.
Seek refuge. Okay, I see. I think that what the question is about seabirds, I think. That's a non-pelagic means, because all the land birds are also in a way, they are not pelagic. The real pelagic birds are the true seabirds, the Procellariiformes. I think the question is, what are the non-pelagic seabirds breeding? Yes, the terns, there's about 8 species of terns breeding here in Sri Lanka. Most of them breeds in the offshore islands of Rama's Bridge, of Mana, but they get disturbed by people visiting and photographers and just egg collectors. All kinds of people go there. So I mean that has to be controlled. Navy is doing what they can do, what they could. But there should be greater protection for the islands of Rama's Bridge. And also, I'm pretty sure there are some other islands, few islands in the north of Kalpitia, as well as in the Jaffna, of Jaffna Peninsula. And there are few islands, rocky outcrops in the southern sector has breeding like roseate terns and great crested terns. And if you looked, some islands might be of Yala, also might be used for some birds, as well as swampy areas in Bundala and across along the dry zone belt. There's little terns breeding. Saunders terns, we recently published a paper where a fairly large colony of sympatric Saunders and little terns colonies in Mana been documented. That's the first time that the Saunders terns breeding been documented. So there are, yet things to be discovered. About 5 years ago, I discovered the first time the breeding of brown noddy, again another kind of a tern, brown colored tern. So there's still we don't know much about these things, but it's slowly these things are unveiling. Yeah.
Yes. So that you talked about the ducks specifically. So there's this question: are you catching the ducks in mist nets?
There are different ways of catching birds, accepted standard methods. Mist netting considered as one of the standard methods, but there are other methods for scientific study. There are ways, because the problem, the challenge in scientific studies is that you have to catch a bird without injuring it. If when you try to catch a bird, in the while people come and say, "Ayyo mahathaya ඔහොම නෙමෙයි ඕක අල්ලන්නේ මෙහෙමයි අල්ලන්නේ අල්ලලා දෙන්නද?" එහෙම. I mean, and some say, "අපෝ මහත්තයා ඕක හරි ලේසි අපි නිතර අල්ලනවා." සමහරු like recently some kid and say, "රසම එකා." So when the bird is in our hand, the small kid is saying රසම එකා. So and then so we asked like රසයි කිව්වේ පුතා නෑ නෑ ඕකගේ තමයි රසම. So this is a bird that you would never think that somebody would eat. So anyways, so they would say, okay, ඔහොම නෙමෙයි අල්ලන්නේ sir, මෙහෙමයි අල්ලන්නේ. නැත්නම් අයියෝ ඔහොම අල්ලලා ඔයගලන්ට කවදාකවත් ඕක අල්ලන්න බෑ. And they sometimes say ඊයේ ඉඳලම ඉන්නව නේද අල්ලගන්න බැරි වුණා තාම නේ ඔහොම නෙමෙයි අල්ලන්නේ. So the reality is that yes, there are easier ways probably to catch, but there are accepted, ethically accepted, scientifically approved methods that only those methods can be used, because we need a bird without a single injury. It just has to be injury free. So the mist netting is one, but there are other techniques as well. I think those to catch, as I mentioned, fauna and flora protection ordinance strictly demand a permit. To get a permit, they review it. There's a research committee in the wildlife department. They review it, and they looked at your qualifications, your past experience in banding and handling. So after that they give that. So it's only it's in a way it's a privilege, and it's also it's a great responsibility. So there are techniques for that, and those are the techniques. Mist nets are not the only technique. I'm not comfortable to describe these techniques in public, because the safety of our wild birds are paramount, and some of the species that I showed you, that we show here, are very rare. They are very few in numbers, and they need extreme protection. So it's not for catching. We'd catch only if it is absolutely needed for the understanding of the species for the future conservation. Yes. So Okay. Right.
Yeah, sure, we get that. And the other question is, do they, I mean the migratory birds, do they continuously fly or with breaks?
That's an interesting question. Actually, for somebody who working on birds, we were told that they are flying directly for a long, like, they fly straight and with few stopover sites. But what we are seeing in our birds that we tagged, at least in the Central Asian flyway, because it's a landlocked flyway, they stop a lot. So almost like lazy, like, loiterers. So we were waiting sometimes 2-3 days for them to again take off. They just wait. I mean, in terms of while they're on their migration. So these gulls took about almost a month to go to their northern sites. So the textbooks and this conventional science tells us it goes within weeks, but it took a month. So at least probably in the Central Asian flyway, there's so many barriers. So they wait, and we have some now birds flying over Himalayas as we talk, our tag birds, and they take breaks. So they have to go slowly. This is a marathon. This is not a 100-meter dash for them, right? So this marathon has legs. It's like Dakar rally, they sleep, they wait, they refuel, and they take time to go across. It's not like a straight dash to the Arctic. Okay, yes.
Yes. And of course, in the chat, there are many questions like what is the rarest migrant and what is the most common migrant you observe Sri Lanka?
The issue is the rarest migrants become vagrants. So there are vagrants, in that light, I mean, the last year, that's 2019. Yes, 2019, Modita, Hiranya Kodikare and myself, we observed the first ever record of the European honey buzzard. So probably that's a new species to Sri Lanka, first time. And we published a paper, and then fortunately the next year there were a few more birds were seen. So it confirms, and even in India, so it confirms the presence of the species for the South Indian subcontinent. Sorry, the Indian Peninsula has been not recorded before. So in that light, it is probably the rarest. And I think I've seen undescribed species. So in Sri Lanka, we are working on it. We split already known species, and we showed that they are not the known species. They are cryptic something else. So anyway, so there are, yes, at least on record, I think the European honey buzzard, I would say it's the first time that that's the presence of that species in the Indian subcontinent. So that's a bit of a record, yes.
I think with that, we are coming to the end of the questions in the chat box as well. So there is one more question I would like to direct to the panel itself, that there are, I think in the chat also, we saw that there are a lot of enthusiasts about this bird tagging and bird watching, bird migration. So if somebody is really interested in these programs, so how can they join to the programs like bird watching in this community?
Yes, I think the best route is eBird. If you don't have eBird account already, download your eBird app onto your smartphone or to your computer, and be a eBird. eBird is developed by Cornell Lab of Ornithology at the Cornell University. It's like Forgestel. It's Cornell Lab of Ornithology is part of Cornell University. The same model as Forgestel. Scientist in Cornell University has a one big wing. We are ornithologists, and I also part of that movement. I'm proud of that. And then so developed the eBird, and now we have Merlin, which Sri Lanka has its own package as well. And so get Merlin app and eBird app, and you can be a citizen scientist. Every day you can enter your findings, and you will contribute directly to the migratory studies of the global ornithology. In Fogestel, we have field trips, we do workshops, and also 4 times a year we do this banding But for the banding camps, to join banding camps, you have to first do this beginners training camp. We normally do once a year. We couldn't do it last year because of the lockdowns, and it seems like this year also we can't do that. But it's a normally 4 night, 5 day long field camp where we trained how to band, how to capture using mist nets, how to handle birds in a proper way, and also how to get blood, how to study them, how what is the scientific way of not harming a bird, and study them in hand. So you have to do that, and then you will be qualified to visit. But university students, especially in the 3rd year and 4th year, they can join sometimes Vajarata University, Ruhuna University, Peradeniya, Colombo, and then sometimes in private universities, students, senior level students come and join. So that is there as well. And in for University of Colombo, we have this Kurulu Lovata Kaulu Dorak program for 1st year students. There we again expose them to this kind of the similar program like beginners workshop. So there's ways to join.
Sure, sir. Thank you so much. So I think with that, we are coming to the end of the discussion today. And I think the audience was really enthusiastic as well. So we are really happy about it. So I think we all could learn a lot of new things, and this discussion surely opened the door to a whole new aspect of thinking and learning about the migrants. So before winding up, I would like to thank on behalf of the bees, I would like to thank Dr. Sampath Seneviratne for joining with us today. That it has been always a pleasure to work with you, sir, that we have conducted several webinars now. So, and we are extremely grateful for your cooperation given throughout this program. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much for having us, and yeah, enjoy. And garden birding is fun, and garden birding will give you a lot of new insights. So if you are under lockdown, and obviously we are all, so go to climb to your roof or to your garden in the morning, and you'll see amazing things. All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. So next, I would like to thank Ms. Gayomini Panagoda for joining with us today. Ms. You have been such a supportive person that it became a lot of help in organizing this event. And of course, we wish you good luck in your future endeavors for your PhD.
Thank you, Vihanga. It was really a great opportunity because this is our first live discussion on this tagging work. It was a good experience for me too. Thank you. Thank you all.
So next, our heartfelt thanks goes to Professor Inoka Pereira, our senior treasurer, who is our guiding light as always. Next, we are also thankful to our all academic staff members of our department. And also last but not the least, we are extremely grateful for all the participants, our audience here today, that without you, this event won't be a success. So we are really thankful that you stayed with us for nearly 2 hours. So thank you very much. We highly appreciate your enthusiasm.
Vihanga, one small point. Somebody had asked how you join these events and how you know these events. So my suggestion is, if you are a Facebook user, you can check out our Facebook Facebook site. We normally post events. You can get the membership from Forgesel. As I mentioned, eBird is a inclusive platform. It doesn't own by anybody. It is a global platform for global citizens. It is a platform for every Sri Lankan, every global citizen. So Merlin and eBird, you can do your own data. You can submit your own data, and there's a review panel, that volunteer review panel that can they'll check whether your sightings are appropriate. But anyway, so that is there. And for Forgesel movement, you can track our Facebook site. And I promise in the AGM that we will create a new Twitter or Instagram account. I think I will do this week. And so for those who don't like Facebook, but still in the social media platforms, we'll soon have that as well. Okay, thanks. Sorry. Okay, thank you very much again. Bye.
Yes, thank you very much. So as well as stay tuned with Bees too. So we are organizing more of these webinars in the upcoming months. So stay tuned with Bees for more programs like this, and also stay safe at your homes in the upcoming times. So wishing you a very happy weekend. We conclude our session today. Thank you. Very good night to you.